Our jails and prisons are seriously overcrowded, but a new prison will cost in excess of $200 million. We'll talk about an alternative to imprisonment right now on The Law Works.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Closed captioning for The Law Works is made possible by a grant from the Monongalia County Bar Association to support legal information and education for all West Virginians. The Law Works is made possible by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and legal system, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. By the generous support of Software Systems Incorporated, a West Virginia company established in 1975, providing high-end support services, programming, and consulting for county government AS400 mid-range computer systems, as well as PC-based systems. And by viewers like you.
Our prisons are seriously overcrowded, but what can we do about it? My guests are the Honorable Russell Clodges, Judge of the Circuit Court of Monongalia County, and Rebecca Moore, Coordinator of the Monongalia County Drug Court. Judge, thank you. Rebecca, thank you for being with us. What's the problem with the prisons?
Biggest problem is, at least right now in West Virginia, there aren't enough beds in the prisons for the number of people that are being sent there.
Are we sending too many people to prisons, or do we need to change the laws of imprisonment, or do we need to look for alternatives to imprisonment?
Probably all of the above. I think studies, well, I think the indications that I've seen are that 2/3 of the people that are in our prisons are there for nonviolent crimes. So I guess in one sense you could say we're sending too many people there. In the other sense, we may not be using alternatives that are available.
Well, one of the problems, the political problem, when we start to talk about this issue is somebody will say, well, you're soft on crime. You don't think we should punish lawbreakers if you don't want to send them to prison. But the reality of it is that's politics, that's not the problem.
Can't argue with that.
And of course, you're an elected judge, so
yeah.
You've got to be hesitant to say something like, well, right, we ought to do away with some of these laws, or some of these people shouldn't go to prison. I had a state senator tell me one time, who was in the throes of evaluating all this, he said there are basically two kinds of people that we send to prison. People that we're afraid of, murderers, arsonists, batterers, and people we're mad at. And that would include classifications like embezzlers, or people who commit simple assaults where they don't actually harm somebody, but they intimidate somebody.
Sure.
And within the context of what we're talking about here, some classes of drug abusers.
Certainly.
They haven't really hurt anybody but themselves and maybe society in a broader context, but they're not going to go out and do damage to you or to me in most cases.
In most cases, although some do. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that we see for property crimes, for example, breaking and entering, home burglaries, break-ins of cars, stealing people's checks, stealing people's identity, many of those crimes are driven by a need for drugs, by addiction. And as a result, I'm never going to say that the breaking into somebody's house or breaking into somebody's garage and taking things, or for that matter, breaking into somebody's car and taking things out of their car doesn't harm anybody because it does. Those are not pleasant experiences for the people that go through them. And as a result, it does create an issue, but at the same time, you have to decide whether or not these people are best addressed in prison, or whether or not there are alternatives.
Yeah, we can't downplay it, because if somebody comes into your house and messes with your stuff or takes things out of your home, you feel violated.
Yes.
And you feel fearful. And may well be traumatized significantly as a result of that. But we have to kind of triage these things because we just don't have the resources to isolate, segregate everybody that we don't want to associate with.
Well, precisely. And that's why there need to be alternatives.
Well, one of the alternatives is what has been labeled as drug courts. And you have one in your circuit, Monongalia County, and Rebecca, you pretty much run that for the judge.
Correct. I coordinate it with the judge and with our treatment team.
What's a drug court?
A drug court is a treatment court. It's a program that provides treatment to nonviolent offenders who voluntarily come into the program and with the purpose of changing their lives. And it is a minimum of 12 months long. It has 3 different phases. Phase 1, a minimum of 4 months, is a very intensive supervision time and also an intensive treatment time. With the treatment, that is the crux of the entire drug court. Because if folks come out of prison and they've not received treatment, they're likely not to do well at all.
But there are treatment programs in prisons, aren't there?
There are. In most of the prisons, although studies have shown, for whatever reason, that they're not as successful as community-based treatment programs. It's been my experience that if you send an addict to prison or to jail for however long, if they go in an addict, they'll come out an addict.
And a more polished criminal, according to some indications.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
The idea being that you send someone to jail or prison and they are in close company with other people who have been sent to jail and prisons, and they compare notes about what they did wrong and how they could do it better, and they've come out as better criminals. So really, you'd kind of like to stop that.
Oh yes, definitely, if you can.
Now, one of the problems is, and we talk about jail overcrowding, you send someone to prison, their first stop isn't prison. Their first stop is a regional jail.
Currently, that's correct, because there are not enough beds in the prisons in the state for the, I guess, Department of Corrections inmates. So they are being lodged or housed in the regional jails until there are beds available. And some people are staying there 6 months, a year before they get there. Some folks are actually never seeing the inside of a prison before they're paroled.
Now, one of the things that historically we might think is that being in a jail is an easier place to be than being in a prison. As a practical matter, once you're in one, they look pretty much the same from the inside physically.
Physically, but the programs that are offered are dramatically different. There is very little offered in the way of programming in the regional jails. The regional jails are basically facilities for housing people. The prisons have programs, like we mentioned, substance abuse programs. There are substance abuse programs offered in the prisons. There are, work programs that are offered in the prisons, education programs offered in the prisons. I've seen people get college degrees while they were in prison. But those programs are only available in the prisons. They're not available in the regional jails. So the DOC inmates that are in the jails are really being, and actually there'll probably be a suit one of these days over conditions, for that reason, because they are being denied opportunities that would be available to them if they were in a prison as opposed to a regional jail.
The idea originally was that if you're convicted of a lesser crime, in the legal system those are typically labeled as misdemeanor crimes, right, you could be sent to jail for up to 12 months, up to a year. And if you were convicted of a felony, you would go to prison, and the lowest level felony sentences are a year or more. Typically we say 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 years. But what's happening now is because of overcrowding, people are going to the regional jails, spending their year there, becoming eligible for release with good time credits perhaps, or with parole, or with resentencing. Sometimes they come back and the judge looks at them and says, you've been a good prisoner for the last 8 or 9 or 10 months and we resentence you. And they get out without ever seeing a prison, and accordingly without ever participating in any kind of rehabilitative program.
Sure. And that's, if you look at the regional jails do not offer substance abuse treatment programs. Some of them have AA or NA meetings that meet depending upon circumstances, but not on a consistent basis.
So, Judge, you've got a convicted person standing in front of you who now within the legal system is branded as a criminal because there's been a conviction, either by plea or jury verdict. And you have some choices to make. Mm-hmm. What factors do you consider to see if someone is eligible for the drug court that Rebecca's running?
Of course, first of all, nonviolent offense. Look at prior record. And obviously, you determine whether or not there are substance issues. We look for people who are in addiction. That's crucial. If it's just a casual user or somebody where it's not really an issue, then drug court's not really necessary. They may be amenable to a lesser degree of supervision. They may be amenable to probation alone as a degree of supervision. So we're looking at people who are addicts, which they're not hard to find, unfortunately, and people who need the treatment and that level of supervision to succeed.
And if they satisfy those requirements, you give them an option.
Yes, it's an option to apply for drug court, and it's a voluntary program because of the level of supervision and the requirements, it's not easy by any means.
We're talking about an alternative to imprisonment. My guests are the Honorable Russell Clodges, Judge of the Circuit Court of Monongalia County, and Rebecca Moore, Coordinator of the Monongalia County Drug Court. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. So, Rebecca, somebody, Judge, you said makes application for drug court. It's like going to college. You have to apply to get in?
You have to apply. We take referrals from judges, from prosecutors, from defense attorneys, from law enforcement. We don't take applications or referrals from family. It has to come within the system.
So the people who have seen this person, who know the case, who have investigated the circumstances, you say make referrals, they have to sign off on this application.
Correct, and that starts the process of the assessment. They then go through a substance abuse assessment by a professional to see if they're appropriate for the program and whether they are, as the judge said, addicted. If so, then our treatment team meets and discusses whether they should come in. If they're approved, they are brought into the program.
Tell me about the treatment team.
The treatment team consists of the judge, myself, prosecutor, defense attorney, law enforcement, day report center, and treatment providers.
And treatment provider, what kind of people do you have as treatment providers?
We currently have our intensive outpatient program through Valley Mental Health Center. They do on-site treatment, which is our Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 hours each of those days that when the person comes in.
3 hours, 3 times a week?
Mm-hmm. And that's done on site.
You used to get college credit for spending that much time at something. You don't get that here.
No. We also have individual therapy. Our Day Report Center provides some of our other treatment, which is anger management, parenting skills, life skills. And we also involve our folks in community service. And that, in addition to their treatment, especially in the early phase, adds more to their day, gives them a full day. And that's our goal.
So the idea is to keep them busy.
Mm-hmm. Provide the treatment, plus provide them clean, positive interaction with others and in good environments.
Judge, I suppose the bottom line question is, in terms of dollars and cents, how much does it cost to keep somebody in prison?
Oh, the last I heard was somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 a year. It costs the county $50 a day, or roughly $50 a day, to keep somebody in a regional jail.
And that's just to house them. If you have to bring them back to go to court or move them around, there's additional expenses. And if they get sick, there's medical treatment that is provided to them, sometimes pretty sophisticated medical treatment.
Can be, yes.
But Rebecca described a system here that has a lot of people in it and a lot of professional people who presumably are paid fairly well for what they do. Is there any cost advantage to putting somebody into a drug court?
There's significant cost advantage. I mean, I don't have numbers with me, but yeah, the studies have shown that community-based treatment is substantially less expensive than either warehousing in prison or even attempting to treat in prison. Most of the people that Becky listed, other than the treatment providers, are not compensated over and above what they get paid for doing their job for their participation in drug court. It's over and above. So when I'm involved with that, that's over and above my duties as a judge. When we have an assistant prosecutor that's involved, that's over and above her day-to-day responsibilities as a prosecutor. The same thing with our defense attorney volunteer. It's an attorney who's basically giving his time over and above. Everybody on the team, with the exception of our treatment providers, is not compensated over and above for that.
How many people are in the drug court program in your county?
Right now we don't have very many. We're down to 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. We've had some graduates. We have a list probably that's 20 people long that we're reviewing, and we'll probably be bringing in a significant number here in the next few weeks.
So it is a selective program?
It is.
Well, what about programs like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or something like that? Why not just send them there, and if they mess up, then send them to jail?
Very often we do. And in fact, say in a case where we decide that a lesser degree of supervision is available than drug court, that may be a condition of probation. In fact, it's a condition of participation in drug court. One of the aspects of drug court, one of the aspects of treatment is involvement in a support group. And the AANA model is, by all accounts, the best model around for support group for people who are in recovery from addiction. So all of our people are required to attend. The ones who have completed inpatient treatment, usually there's a requirement of 90 in 90 days. And we usually have requirements for most of our Phase 1 people is that they attend 7 meetings a week.
7 a week? A meeting every day?
Yes, sir.
We're talking about an alternative to imprisonment. My guests are the Honorable Russell Clodges, Judge of the Circuit Court of Monongalia County, West Virginia, and Rebecca Moore, Coordinator of the Monongalia County Drug Court. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. Well, I've heard about other alternatives to imprisonment, though, like probation, home confinement. Why not just use things like that?
We do. And it's all part of the process, it's part of the sentencing process that the court goes through or that I go through. And if it's somebody that I'm not going to put in prison, and I liked your observation earlier about putting people in prison because you're afraid of them or mad at them, most of the people I put in prison are people that I'm afraid of, not necessarily people that I'm mad at. Those people should be dealt with in the community if they can be successful in the community. Now, I have people in prison that are people that I'm mad at, but it's because they did not or were not able to succeed in the community under levels of supervision. Probation is the first level of supervision. Very often as a condition of probation, we may require confinement for a period of time, or we may require home confinement for a period of time. We have a day report center.
What's home confinement?
Home confinement is confinement to your home, and it's electronically monitored. And in fact, now a lot of our people in home confinement, we use GPS monitors that can tell us not only whether or not they're home, but if they're not home, where they are. So when we've given them permission to leave their home, which the law allows for certain circumstances, to work or to do things like that, go to medical appointments, we can actually ensure that they're where they said they were using that monitoring.
Well, okay, you've got home confinement, you've got probation. Who's eligible for probation? So many times you hear people, I don't know if you hear it, I hear it, say, well, that judge is too easy. Look at that, he put that person on probation, that's just a slap on the wrist.
Technically, the only people that are not eligible for probation in the state of West Virginia are people who have committed capital offenses, which are offenses, the penalty for which is life in prison. All other people are eligible for probation.
That's by law.
By law. And I should take that back. There may be one exception to firearm-based crimes. There is a provision that denies probation. Under those circumstances, that requires that the indictment indicate that the fact that it's a firearm-based crime, and there has to be a specific finding by the jury or the judge of that fact, And under those circumstances, then probation is not an option. There are other offenses such as the various sexual assault sentences or crimes where probation is not an alternative unless there is a treatment plan in place, an evaluation and treatment plan in place.
And that kind of falls right into your drug court day release center model.
Yes.
that you have to provide treatment for somebody.
Yes.
So are all these people sick? Is that what this treatment thing is about?
Currently, medically, yes, that is the school of thought, is that addiction is an illness. And with the advances in brain imaging and studies, they're showing very clearly that there are changes in the brains and brain activity of people who are using substances.
But that doesn't excuse it.
No.
In the law,
No.
if you commit a crime, whatever the crime is, and you do that while under the influence of some drug, alcohol or something else, that's not a defense to that crime. You can't say, I was drunk, you have to let me go.
No, it's not a defense, and really, it's not an excuse either. And the fact that somebody's placed on probation or placed in drug court is not using that as an excuse or a defense. What it is addressing the underlying problem. Because if you're committing crimes because you're trying to get the money to pay for your addiction, if you don't address the addiction, even putting them in prison for pick your number of years, most property crimes it's 1 to 10, 1 to 5, something like that. So the simple fact of the matter is if they don't make parole, they're going to max out at some point in time, they're going to be released. In fact, most people that I put in prison will get out one day and they will be back in society. And if you haven't addressed the underlying problems or issues, they're going to turn right around and do it. In fact, that's what the studies show, that most people that spend time in prison and get out usually end up back in prison at some point in time. And the numbers, it's just a significant percentage.
Well, Rebecca, I'm going to talk in medical terms. You're a nurse as well as a lawyer. Are you curing anybody in this program?
We're helping people help themselves. We're providing things, and one of the things that I did want to mention is within the drug court, we also help people with their health issues. After many years of using drugs and not taking care of themselves, they have significant health issues. We're lucky to have the Morgantown Health Right, which has been a great asset for these folks. We also help them vocationally. As part of the program and as you move through the program, you're expected to start working. And so with the community service, that also has the added benefit of allowing these folks to be able to establish a positive work environment and work record with a community service organization, which can then help them have a reference to be able to get a job. We also encourage, if they don't have their high school education, a high school diploma, to get their GED. If they have that, to either do vocational training additionally, or possibly even some college work and college degree. One thing I didn't mention as part of the program is that in phase 1, the participants come to court every week before Judge Klodges. As you progress through the program, that's reduced every other week, and then once a month in the latter stages. So they have court involvement on a weekly basis to monitor their progress and to change their treatment if necessary.
And your leverage through all this is what?
The primary leverage is the underlying sentence, and I guess maybe that's something that we haven't really stated very clearly, is that everybody that's involved in the drug court program has an underlying sentence. They have been convicted of a crime, they have been sentenced to the penitentiary for that crime. They are on probation. One of the conditions of probation is their participation in drug court. If they get themselves kicked out of drug court, that is a violation of the conditions of their probation. Their probation can be revoked for that, and the simple fact of the matter is most people who don't succeed in drug court and violate then have to serve their prison sentence.
And Rebecca, when you say they're encouraged to do this, they're encouraged to do that, you don't ask them nicely. You tell them that they're going to do these things, don't you?
We work with them so that they begin, hopefully, to think on their own and move forward. We like to see progress. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that.
Judge Russell Klodges, Rebecca Moore, thank you for being with us.
Welcome.
Thank you also for being with us. On behalf of the LawWorks, I'm Dan Ringer. Good evening. On the LawWorks website at thelawworks.org, you'll find a listing of recent The LawWorks programs, additional information about this show's topic, and video of this and recent shows. You can also find the LawWorks programs on YouTube and iTunes. If you would like to suggest a topic for a future The LawWorks show, or if you're a school teacher and would like to receive a DVD of this show for classroom use, send us email at thelawworks@comcast.net or visit us on Facebook.
The LawWorks is produced in cooperation with the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the Mountain State Bar, the Monongalia County Bar Association, and the West Virginia University College of Law. The LawWorks is made possible by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and legal system, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. By the generous support of Software Systems Incorporated, a West Virginia company established in 1975, providing high-end support services, programming, and consulting for county government AS400 mid-range computer systems, as well as PC-based systems. And by viewers like you.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.